ॐ गणानां त्वा गणपतिं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमम् ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत आनः शृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम् ॐ श्रीमहागणाधिपतये नमः। ॐ वृषभं शर्षणीनां विश्वरूपमदाभ्यं बृहस्पतिं वरेण्यम् ॐ तद्विष्णोः परमं पदं सदा पश्यन्ति सूरयः दिवि वचक्षुराततम्। ॐ श्रीमहालक्ष्म्यै नमः। ॐ श्लीं ह्लीं ज्योतिर्ब्राह्माय नमः। Can everybody say after me Hare Ramakrishna 3 times? Om Hare Ramakrishna, Hare Ramakrishna, Hare Ramakrishna. We will continue Parasha. In the last couple of classes we did not discuss BPHS. So we are on chapter 7, right? I mean the chapter on the 7th house, right? We finished 6th house.
I missed the last 10 minutes or so, but that is what.
Yeah, I believe we are. Yeah. Yes. We finished up to 6th house. So we are on the 7th house.
Is it 23rd?
It is chapter 18.
No, I'm saying the sloka.
28.
28.
Yeah. We finished 28th sloka in chapter 17. Now we are on chapter 18 in Santanam's version of Parasara, the 7th house. Jaya Bhava Phaladhyaya. Jaya Bhava Phalam Vakshe Shrunutvam Dvijasattama Jayadhipe Swabhe Svoche Sri Sukham Purnamadishet. Okay, so Parasara is telling Maitreya, Jaya Bhava Phalam Vakshe Shrunutvam Dvijasattama. Oh great learned Brahmin, I am going to tell you the results of the 7th house. Please listen carefully. Jayadhipe Swabhe Svoche. Jayadhipa means the lord of the 7th house. If the lord of the house of wife, the lord of the 7th house, if he is in Swabhe means in own house. Bha means house, Swa means own house. Svoche means in his own exaltation sign. So if the 7th lord is in own sign or exaltation sign, Sri Sukham Purnamadishet means the happiness from wife, or Sri Sukham literally means happiness from a woman. That's what it literally means. But it basically means happiness from spouse. Purnam Adishet. Purnam means full. Adishet means may the learned say. So may the learned astrologer say complete happiness from spouse if the 7th lord is in own sign or in exaltation sign. Kalatrapo vinasvarksham Vyayashashthashtamasthitah Roginim kurute narim Tatha tungadikam vina. Okay. Kalatrapo vinasvarksham. Kalatrapo means, Pa means one who rules. Kalatra means 7 wife. Kalatrapa means the 7th lord. Vinasvarksham. Vina means without. Svarksham means Swaruksham. Ruksham means house. Swa means own. Again own house. Equivalent of Swabha. So if the 7th lord without own sign, Vyaya Shashthastama Sthitaha means Vyaya 12th, Shashtha 6th, Ashtama 8th, Sthitaha means occupying. So if the 7th lord is in 6th or 8th or 12th house, but not in own sign, without own sign. Roginim kurute narim. The person will marry a woman who is Rogini means deceased, sick person. So basically it doesn't mean he marries a sick person, but the person may get sick after marriage also. But basically there will be some health problems or some suffering relating to wife. Tatha tungadikam vina. Tatha means and also tungadikam vina. Tunga means exaltation. Tungadikam means exaltation, etc. So own sign, exaltation, etc. without them. So if the planet is not in own sign, not in Murtikona, not in exaltation, etc. and in the 6th or 8th or 12th house, basically Dusthanas, then there is some problem relating to wife. Saptametu sthite shukre, saptametu sthite shukre, shukre ativa kami, okay. Saptametu sthite shukre ativa kami bhaven narah. Yatra kotra sthite papa yute trimaranam bhavet. Okay. Saptametu sthite shukre means Saptama means 7th. Saptametu sthite shukre. If Shukra is in the 7th house, if Venus is sitting in the 7th house, ativa kami bhaven narah means ati means overly, kami means one who has desires. So the person will have strong desires if Venus is in the 7th house. Bhaven narah. It says the person. So 7th house is not just the house of spouse. It is also the pardon me? It is also the desire of the native. How much desire the native has, how the native interacts with others, including his wife. All that is seen from the 7th house. The previous results were from the 7th Lord. This result is from the 7th house. And there he was talking about the spouse. And here he is talking about the nature of the person. So this is also a clue that 7th house itself is the desire of the person and the marriage of the person. Whereas the 7th Lord is the person through which that happens. The person through which the desires are satisfied. The person through which marriage is fulfilled, etc. So in general, planets are people and houses are situations, places, and aspects of yourself.
But the previous sloka is applicable to men also, right? Not just only. But
I would say he's basically talking about men. He's not talking about women. But obviously the same thing will apply. He's not specifically, instead of saying men or women, he's just saying men. So for example, here he said bhaven narah. Narah means man, not a woman. The next verse is, actually we are not done with this verse. Yatra kotra sthite papa yute strimaranam bhavet. Yatra kotra sthite means wherever he is, yatra kotra sthite, wherever he is sitting, papa yute, if he is with male fix, strimaranam bhavet, then death of the spouse. So who? He didn't say who. So obviously Venus. So if Venus is in the 7th house, there are a lot of desires. If Venus, wherever he is, if Venus, the Karaka, is afflicted by male fix. Which male fix? Are we talking about natural male fix or functional male fix here? He used the word Papa, not Krura. He uses the word Soumya and Krura for natural benefic and natural male fix, while he uses the word Shubha and Papa for functional benefics and functional male fix for your chart. So if you are, for example, depending on your lagna, suppose you are, let's say, Cancer lagna. So let's say Mars is with Venus, then this verse doesn't apply because Mars is a functional benefit. He is a Subhagraha, he is not a Papagraha for you. So it's not a big deal. But if a functional malefic happens to afflict Venus, then you should take all these verses with a pinch of salt. First of all, it is not entirely obvious that each line, each word here is actually from the mouth of Parasara. There could be a little bit of corruption here and there. That is one problem. And the other problem is, these are basically thumb rules. These are generalized guidelines so that you know how to judge. So don't jump to the conclusion. But let's say the 8th Lord and 6th Lord are afflicting, let's say, afflicting Venus. Then when the Dasha or Antardasha of that planet comes, if you see other factors also conducive, you may think there is going to be some suffering relating to the wife. Wife may become sick or not necessarily dead. The literal word used here is maranam, which means death. It may not be death, but it may be some suffering relating to the wife. But again, apart from the 7th Lord, to see the spouse, you can see Venus. That is the hint here. And based on what we know, what we were taught based on the tradition earlier, we knew that to see death and to see suffering, we have to see the Thera Karaka, right? we said that there are three kinds of karakas: Naisargika karakas, Charakarakas, and Sthirakaras. Naisargika karakas are basically that kind of karakatva is ruled by Brahma. It is basically for creation, for the purpose of creation and the vitality of the person. So if you are saying when the wife comes or when a child comes, etc., you use Naisargika karakas. Similarly, for the concept of Charakarakas is ruled by Vishnu, Mahavishnu. So it's basically important for sustenance purposes. When you are seeing Raj Yogas, etc., you use the Charakarakas more. You give them prominence. And the concept of Sthirakaras is ruled by Shiva, Maheshwara. So this is important for the purpose of killing, suffering, etc. So if you are using Shiva Dasha and timing the death, etc., then you will be using the Sthirakaras. So here he has, of course, Venus is the Sthirakaraka as well as Naisargika Karaka. So it is not obvious, but based on the hints from our tradition, we infer that he is referring to Venus because he is the Sthirakaraka. And if it is a woman, then you use Jupiter. As Naisargika Karaka, it is Venus for both. But when it comes to Sthirakaraka, for women it is Jupiter in a woman's chart. In a man's chart it is Venus. Here he said Venus. He is talking about a man. If it is woman, you use Jupiter.
So Venus, he talked about the seventh lord and Venus separately.
Separately,
right? Now,
in different contexts.
If Venus happens to be the seventh lord also at the same time,
right?
And he's also in the seventh house.
He's also in the
seventh house.
Okay.
So will that make it more?
If he is in the seventh house,
and he's also the seventh lord.
Right. See, he said earlier, if the seventh lord is in a bad house, bad results. But if he is in own sign, then things are fine. Okay. So if Venus is also, if he is in an own sign, but with functional malefic, then we are basically combining two verses. In one verse, seventh lord being in seventh is good. In the other verse, if Venus is with functional malefic is bad. But the thing is, he is in own house. So he should be able to fight back. Let's say Venus is in sun's house and sun is a functional malefic. Venus may or may not be able to fight back such a sun. But if Venus is in own house, and let's say the functional malefic happens to be a friend also, let's say Saturn is a functional malefic, and he is afflicting Venus, but Venus is in own sign, or even exaltation sign, then Venus may be able to convince Saturn, hey, take it easy, let's not trouble him. So basically, the agenda of the seventh lord is to give you happiness from spouse. And the agenda of Venus, based on his signification, is to give you happiness. If we go back to our previous analogy, the analogy that we gave at the beginning of all these classes, the Karaka is like a project manager. He is basically the one who is finally responsible for that particular matter. So Venus is basically the responsible guy. He is like the project manager for the project of getting a person married and keeping the person's marriage happy. And the lord of the house is like a group manager who owns some resources that are important to contributing to that matter. And the planets who occupy that house are like people who are working on that project. If somebody is working on that project, it doesn't mean they want to make that project successful. If the sixth lord is in the seventh house, his agenda is to break the marriage. So he won't be conducive to the marriage. So you have to look at what the agenda of the planet is. So let's say Venus, the Karaka himself owns the seventh house and he is in one house. So it's like project manager also owns a group. He is the group manager and he has an important role in the project. There is a very good chance of success for the project. And also he is in that sign itself, apart from being the seventh lord. In your example, if he is in the seventh house itself, the project manager is directly contributing to the project. He is working on the project. So it has a very high chance of success. He is a hands-on project manager. So, unless some really big malefic planet is spoiling him and he is so strong that he will dominate over Venus. So it's very unlikely.
So there is a thing called Kendradipatya dosha.
Yeah.
That means the seventh lord is in the seventh house or the fourth lord is in the fourth house.
It's not seventh lord in the seventh house is not Kendradipatya dosha.
Or anybody can.
Where he is actually irrelevant to that dosha. The issue is ownership itself is the problem. If a natural benefic owns, forget own house. Everybody owns one house only. If a natural benefic owns a Kendra, it basically makes them a malefic planet.
So regardless of whether they are located there.
Irrespective of whether they are located there or not. But if they are located there, it actually makes it better. If they are located there, it actually gives relief. Let's say somebody has Virgo Lagna and Jupiter is in Sagittarius. Forget Jupiter in Sagittarius. Jupiter is somewhere else. Now, Jupiter, on account of owning two Kendras, he becomes a functional malefic, right? So he is not really an auspicious planet for Lagna, not for that house. He is not an auspicious planet for Lagna. But as far as the 4th and 7th houses are concerned in this example, he owns those houses and his agenda is to give Sukha, his agenda is to give marriage. So as far as marriage is concerned, he is not a malefic planet. He is a good planet. Taking that as Lagna. If you do Bhava Lagna, if you take the 7th house or 4th house as Lagna, he is good. He is Lagna Lord. But if you take Lagna, for Lagna itself, he is a malefic planet. So for the native, because of vehicle or because of marriage or because of some matter shown by these events, there can be some problems to the native. And those problems are shown by which house he occupies, which planets he afflicts, etc. If that Jupiter, let's say, is with Venus, then this verse applies. He is a Papi and he is afflicting Venus, so there can be some problem to wife. So that is what it means. But if the Jupiter is in own sign, let's say he is in Sagittarius itself or Pisces itself, he is giving Hamsa Mahapurusha Yoga. So even though he is in a Kendra, he is the Kendra Lord, he is in Kendra in own sign.
7th Lord in 7th becomes Hamsa.
7th Lord in 7th is not necessarily Hamsa. If it is Jupiter, it is Hamsa. If it is Venus, it is Malavya. If it is Mars, it is Ruchika. For all the 5 major planets, there is a Mahapurusha Yoga based on it. So 7th Lord in 7th is not really bad. It is actually a saving grace. Unless that planet happens to be Rahu or Saturn or Mars. The thing is, like I said, let's say there is a group manager. He is working actively on the project. That is good for the project, except unless he is not on good terms with the project manager. Let's say that planet happens to be Venus enemy, worst enemy of Venus, and Adhishatru of Venus, and he is 7th Lord in the 7th house. Then his concept of what 7th house means may be different from what Venus concept is. He may just talk about business, for example. There are so many, let's say it is Mars. He may talk about business. 7th house is also business, not just marriage. So he may go against Venus because he doesn't like. So if a manager who is working on a project and a project manager are not on good terms, the project is a disaster. So you have to also look at the relationships between the dispositor of the house lord, the project manager, and the planets who are associated with that house, like occupants, aspectors, etc.
But if it is Rahu or Mars, if they are in their own house,
yeah,
they won't be spoiling that house.
They won't really spoil,
They
but
won't get support.
they may accentuate a particular aspect of that house, which is not necessarily marriage. 7th house is not just marriage. It also shows business. It also shows 7th house may show foreign travels. So if Rahu is in own sign in 7th house, he may give a lot of foreign travels.
But,
If Mars is in own sign in the 7th house, he may give business.
no, which means he might.
I'm not saying they won't give marriage. I'm saying there are possibilities.
So if he is even giving benefit in other aspects of the house,
Yeah.
the aspect of marriage, he may not take his down it. He may not go against it.
He may not go against or he may not even go for it. It depends on his relationship with the Venus. There is a Karaka. For every matter, there is a Karaka. The Karaka is like the project manager. So if he and the house lord are on good terms, things will fly. There will be sparks. On the other hand, if the Karaka and the house lord are not auspicious, I mean they don't like each other, still a planet placed in that house or a planet affecting that house, if they are willing to give the result, let's say the 3rd lord is in 7th house, he is the lord of another Kama Trikona. So being in the 7th house, he may want to actually give marriage. It's like somebody who is really interested in that project, working on that project. So irrespective of other politics, the person may contribute. Especially if the person is a good friend to either the project manager or the group manager, then things may finally happen. So that is why Parashara gives a lot of importance to the relationships between the planets. So look at the relationship between the Karaka, the Lord, and the planet who's in the house or aspecting the house. And also, of course, the Dasha has to come. Just because I want to work on the project, if my time hasn't come, I may not be able to work on the project and finish the project. So look at the Dasha. Let's say there is a planet in the 7th house who is a very good friend of Venus, and let's say Venus is aspecting him, but the 7th Lord in 7th is, let's say, not conducive to marriage. Still, if the Dasha of the planet in the 7th house that I mentioned, which is, let's say, 3rd Lord in the 7th house, if the Dasha comes and Venus under Dasha comes, let us say, they can still be married. So the thing is, bottom line is, It is not just a matter of looking at, okay, he wants this, so he is giving this result, or he is occupying this house, so he is giving this result. You have to basically think of planets as people who have certain agendas. If the seventh lord is in sixth house, like we discussed earlier, sixth house is the house of separation, or break in the marriage, or loss of the marriage, loss of the relationship. It's not conducive. But his agenda is to give marriage. His agenda is not to separate the people. His agenda is to give marriage. He is the seventh lord. And if you place him in the sixth house, you are saying, okay, this is where you are placed now. Try to give some results relating to this house. But if his agenda is not conducive, he won't give those results. But being in that house, being in that company, he may have to give some setbacks, but he won't break the marriage. On the other hand, let's say sixth lord is in the seventh house. Seventh house is the house of giving a smooth marriage. And the sixth lord, his agenda is to break the marriage, or to give a break in the marriage. So if you are telling the guy who wants to break this house, you are putting him in this house and say, hey, take care of this house. He will say, no, my agenda is to break. He will wait till you leave, and then he will break the house. So like that, sixth lord in the seventh and seventh lord in the sixth, both are bad. But the exact way in which they are bad is different.
But
So,
in this example, sixth and sixth lord in seventh or seventh lord in sixth, will only give quarrels but not break. If it is eighth lord in seventh,
it may be break also, it may be separation, but it is mostly quarrels, you are right.
being 12 from
Yeah.
seventh.
Eighth house is the maraka for marriage, more than the sixth house. Sixth house is basically like a small break or compromises, quarrels, etc. You are right. Okay.
And one repetition on this thing that you said about Chirakarka is, if it is men, you consider Venus.
If it is men, you consider Venus as the Therakarka of spouse. If it is, actually this is what Parashara taught in a actually previous or later chapter. In a chapter on the Karakas, he talks about Naisargika Karakas, Charakarkas, and finally Sthirakarkas. And in Sthirakarkas, he says that Jupiter is the Sthirakarka for women. This is why some people actually, when they see the timing of marriage, they actually use Jupiter in women's chart, in Sri Jataka. But the view of our tradition is, it is applicable basically only Sthirakarkatva. If you are looking at,
Why did they do that?
pardon me?
Why did they do that?
Because there is this, in some traditions, there is this idea that Jupiter shows husband and Venus shows wife.
No, but Chirakarka we are going to see for suffering or disease.
I know, but some people don't have this concept that Chirakarka shows Shiva-related matters, Naisargika shows Brahma. They don't have this concept. They just use them interchangeably. Charakarka, Naisargika, and Chirakarka. So they are just Karkas. So people who think like that, they use Jupiter for every matter. But the thing is, in our tradition, Jupiter is the Karaka for husband only when you are seeing death or death-like suffering or some you are using an Ayudhasha basically, or you are looking at serious troubles. The next verse is Jayadhisya Subhairjukto Drishto Va Balasamyutah Tada Jato Dhanimani Sukha Saubhagya Samyutah. Okay. Now he is switching gears. Jayadhisya Subhairjukto means, if the seventh lord, Subhairjukto means, Subhairjukto. Yukta means conjoined. Subhai means by natural benefit, functional benefits. So, if the seventh lord is with functional benefits, Drishtova means or aspected. So, seventh lord should be either conjoining or aspected by functional benefits. And Balasamyutah means he should be having strength. He should be strong. So seventh lord should be strong. Exactly how you judge the strength, he hasn't mentioned. So maybe you use Vimshobhaka Bala, use exaltation, etc. So use some measure of strength to see how strong the seventh lord is, and he should be conjoined or aspected by functional benefits. Tada jato dhanimani sukha saubhagya samyutah. Tada jato, a person born at such a time, dhanimani. Dhani means wealthy. Mani means respected. Sukha saubhagya samyutah. Sukha means comfort. Saubhagya means again fortune. So the person is basically very fortunate. He is wealthy, he is happy, he is respected, and all that stuff. He has a lot of honor, fortune. No. Why? So why is he talking about all these results with 7th house? 7th house we thought was the house of marriage, isn't it? So 7th house is not just the house of marriage. 7th house is the house of?
Because the 7th happens to be 11th from 9th. So the gains of hardly are.
Okay. 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 So 7th house, let's see what houses it has Argala on. What are the houses 7th house has Argala on?
10th house.
For me?
7th house.
No, not on the 10th house. On 10th house it has reverse Argala. Which houses does it have Argala on? Which houses does it intervene in? The 9th house, like you said, it has the 11th house Argala on the 9th house. Which means it is important for the fructification of fortune. And what other houses? It has 4th house Argala on 4th house. If you take the 4th house, the 4th from there is 7th house. And what other houses? 6th house. 6th house is the house of the effort that you put in and overcoming the obstacles. So any planet in the 7th house has a role to play in these houses. It makes you work hard, overcome your obstacles, and get some direction, 4th house, direction and happiness, and have some fortune. But apart from it, 7th house is basically the other lagna. Some of Jaimini's principles, they talk about either lagna or 7th house. Narayan Dasha is starting either from the lagna or from the 7th house. Always basically there are two concepts of you. When we are talking about self, there are two concepts of self. One is the introvert concept of self, the other is the extrovert concept of self. One is shown by lagna, the other is shown by the 7th house. So both of them are very important. In a chart, if the 7th house is stronger, you could actually judge the native's personality from the 7th house. That is what Jaimini teaches. Even when he talks about Arudha, he says, look at Arudha Lagna or Arudha of the 7th house to judge the status of the person. Because 7th house is how the world sees you. I mean, 7th house is your relationship. 7th house is your interactions. It's not just wife. Wife is one subcase, one subset. The real meaning of 7th house is your desires, your interactions with people. It is the house of interaction with the world. And the world judges you based on your interaction. So if there are strong planets there, if the 7th Lord is really, really strong, if he is, let's say, exalted, if he is with functional benefits, the planet who shows your interactions with the world, what kind of people you interact with, how you interact with people. If the planet shows really a positive environment, a very rich kind of environment, you are probably a rich person. You judge how rich or poor a person is based on who he is moving with, and 7th house is who you are moving with. So that way, the lesson here is, Parashara doesn't give all results with respect to each aspect of the house. He gives one result with respect to one aspect, another result with respect to another aspect. What you have to do is, you have to judge what are various shades, various aspects of a house from the various stanzas that he gives. So 7th house is the house of your spouse, the health of your spouse, how happy you are with your spouse, and also what kind of people you move with, how rich you are. Let's say somebody is really rich, but he has all his money locked up in a bank. He doesn't really act like a rich man. He acts like a really poor man. Then will this stanza apply to that person? No. Because if you understand the spirit of the stanza, this is not about that kind of people. This is about people who are moving in big circles. That kind of fortunate people. Okay? Okay. The next word.
All this will apply only to Rashi, not to Navamsa. When we are talking about
This applies to Rashi. You could even apply it to other divisional charts. But the previous verses which talk about spouse, they obviously apply to Navamsa. Because he said, Navamsa Kalatrana, the matters relating to spouse you see in the 7th house. Similarly, the wealth matters, which divisional chart do you see it in? Wealth in D2. The fortune in what chart? D4. So you could actually look at the 7th house in D2 and D4 to see how rich the person is. And Navamsa to see spouse. And what does the 7th house in Rashi chart show? Of course, it shows a sum total of all these, but apart from it, Rashi is the physical chart of your body. So what does 7th house show?
Physical interaction.
Your physical interactions, physical desires, and how you strain yourself physically because of your desires. Apart from it, what physical part does it show? Seventh house. It shows your sexual organs, it shows your kidneys, etc. The seventh house.
That's the eighth house.
Tell me?
That's the eighth house.
Cardio, right?
Eighth
Natural
house.
delivery, I think is called.
Stomach is fifth house.
Stomach is the fifth house. Okay. Sixth house, what is sixth house? Liver, etc.
Upper stomach.
Upper stomach.
Seventh house.
Seventh house, one of the things it shows is kidneys. Right.
But the eighth house is the one, the sexual organs. Right?
The sexual organs are in the eighth house, the external. But some internal parts relating to the sexual organs are from the seventh house. So there's an overlap between seventh and eighth houses. But the thing is, each house, when you say 10th house, if you say, what is 10th house? It shows the need. So it's not just your career. It is basically, when you're looking at the Rashi chart, it is
Physical.
mainly, Rashi chart is a chart of your physical body. And it is a sum total of all your regional charts. But the thing is, you should not downplay the physical aspect of it. Rashi chart is mainly the chart of physical body. So the previous verses you will apply to Navamsha, and this verse you will apply to Hora and D4. The next verse is Niche Satrugrahas Niche Satrugruhesteva Nirbale Chakalatrape Tasya Pirogini Bharya Bahu Bharjo Naro Bhavet. Okay. Niche Satrugruhe Aste Va Nirbale Chakalatrape. Okay. If the seventh lord is in Nicha, means he is in debilitation. Seventh lord is in debilitation. Shatrugruhe means in inimical house. Aste means in combustion. If the seventh lord is in either inimical house or combustion or debilitation or nirbale means in general weak, then what is the result? Tasyapi rogini bharya. For such a person also, the spouse will be rogini, disease. She will have diseases. Bahubharyo naro bhavet. Or the person may have many wives. So again, if the seventh lord is badly placed, there is some misfortune relating to the wife. Could it also mean that the person will not be moving in big circles and he will be poor? Yes, absolutely. Because he is talking about this verse immediately after the previous verse where he gave one result. But he is jumping gates here. But you could say that if I say if you do this, then this. If you do that, if I say the opposite and if I give a different result, that means this is another aspect. The opposite of the previous result is also one aspect which is obviously concluded. He is not mentioning it again so that he can save time. So again, the converse is true. If the seventh lord, let's say, is strong and he is conjoining and aspected by functional benefits, then the result is not only that the person will be moving in good circles, but also that the person will be lucky with respect to wife. The person will have a healthy wife, good wife. But again, that will be in a different chart. That will be in Navamsha. The result about moving in big circles, that is in Hora. That is the chart of your wealth. So in Navamsha, you see the happiness, the fortune with respect to the wife. Of course, one may have both. One may be very lucky in marriage and also one may be rich. But another person may not be lucky. He may be very rich, but his wife may be suffering, or vice versa. But the bottom line is, seventh house shows your wife and also it shows your desires and also it shows the circles that you move in. The next verse, the sixth verse. Mandabhe shukra geheva jaya dhise shubhekshite svochagetu visheshena bahubharjo naro bhavet. Mandabhe shukra geheva jaya dhise shubhekshite svochagetu visheshena bahubharjo naro bhavet. Okay. Mandabhe means Manda sign. That means Capricorn or Aquarius. Shukra Gehe means Libra or Taurus. One of the houses owned by Venus. So a Saturnine or Venusian house, what about them? Jayadhisya Shubhekshite. Jayadhisya means the seventh lord. So if the seventh lord is in a Saturnine or Venusian sign, Shubhekshite means aspected by functional benefits. Only aspected, can't it be conjoined also? Probably, because usually whenever he talks about aspected, it is also conjoined. Because he doesn't want to waste words, probably he didn't say it now. So we'll conclude, it is also conjoined. So conjoined or aspected by functional benefit, not natural benefit, not Jupiter Venus. It has to be functional benefit. Svochage to Visheshena Svochage means, and also in an exaltation sign. Who become exalted in Venusian signs and Saturnine signs?
Saturn gets exalted in a Venusian.
Saturn gets exalted in a Venusian sign, Moon gets exalted, and Mars gets exalted. So this combination is for basically Moon, Mars and Venus being the seventh lord. So basically there are 5 signs that are covered, five lagnas. So in those 5 lagnas, which are Taurus, Libra, where Mars is the seventh lord, Capricorn, where Moon is the seventh lord, and then Leo and Cancer, where Saturn is the seventh lord. So for those 5 lagnas, if the seventh lord is exalted and he is aspected or conjoined by functional benefits, then Bahubhajyo Naro Bhavet means the person will have many wives. This is basically mentioned as a kind of fortune with respect to spouses. Having many spouses was considered to be fortune, because as you can see, this is basically a positive combination having to do with exalted planets. So this is considered as a positive combination. But what you can say is, in today's world, having many wives is not, many spouses is not necessarily a positive thing. So bottom line is, maybe you can't apply it as is. What it means is, the person will be very lucky with respect to spouse. You don't need many wives to be lucky. Yes.
If you take the Muslim religion,
Yeah.
and all of them have the similar thing?
No, I wouldn't really say that a lot of Muslims have this combination while Hindus don't have it. See, most of these combinations you have to apply within the Deshakala Patra. So there is a base which is formed based on the times that you are living in, the place that you are living in, and the Deshakala Patra, and the nature of the person, whether you are talking about a king or whether you are talking about a rickshawala. So depending on the class of the person, depending on the time, age, and depending on the place, what is appropriate, what is inappropriate, what is lucky, what is unlucky, what is good, what is bad, all changes. So you have to use those criteria to form your basis. And within those bases, fluctuations are shown by these combinations. So lot of Muslims may have lot of wives. So not necessarily all of them will have this combination. But one Muslim may have this combination and another Muslim may not. So the Muslim who has this combination may have more wives, or more likely he may be more lucky with the wives that he has. The previous combination also shows Bahubharyo, but it shows sick wife and then many wives. One wife is sick, then you have another wife, that wife is sick, you have another wife. What's the point in having many wives then? You are unlucky basically. So just having many wives is not luck, because he just talked about that in the previous verse as a negative thing. Now he's talking about it as a positive thing. So the lesson here is, it's not really about having many wives. It's about being lucky with respect to wives. Okay. The next combination is Vandhya Sango Made Bhanau Chandre Rasi Samastriyah Kuje Rajaswala Sango Vandhya Sangasya Kirtitah. See how he translated. Actually it's not done. Budhe Vestya cha Hina cha Panik Striva Prakirtita Gurau Brahmana Bharya Syat Garbhini Sangajeva cha Hina cha Pushpini Vacha Mandarahu Phanishwaraihi. Okay. Vandhya Sango Made Bhanau. Mada means the seventh house. Bhanau means if sun is. Vanja means a lady who doesn't have children, a barren lady, somebody who a childless lady. So Vanja Sango, Asango means interested. Vanja Sango means somebody will be interested in and have an affair with basically a barren lady. If sun is in the 7th house. Chandre Rashi Samastriyaha. Chandre Rashi Samastriyaha means Rashi Sama means corresponding to the sign. Striyaha means woman. So there will be affair with, so he's talking about affairs here now, based on the planet who occupies the 7th house. So sun in the 7th house, affair with a barren lady. Could also be a royal lady. This is one combination. Sun shows barrenness. That is why he gave that combination. But it can be other things. The bottom line is, based on the planet occupying the 7th house, you judge what kind of affair the person will have. That is the lesson here. The other is Chandre Rashi Samastriya, means in the case of moon, it will be somebody who is shown by the sign, the nature of the sign. So moon doesn't really have a specific nature. It shows, it can be anybody. So if moon is, let's say, in Capricorn, it may be somebody from a lowly class. It may be somebody who works for you, maybe your servant maid.
You're talking about if 7th lord happens to be moon?
Pardon me?
You're talking about
No. Vanja Sango Made Bhano. If sun is in 7th house, then this. Chandre this. Kuje this. He's saying if sun is in this, in the 7th house, this result. If moon this, if Mars this, if Mercury this, like this, he gives the list. So obviously for all of them it is in the 7th house. So occupant of the 7th house gives a hint on the kind of affair. Again, this verse is a guideline. This is an important thing from the point of view that it shows the nature of the affair based on the planet. But don't jump to conclusions. You can't really just look at sun and say, hey, are you seeing a barren lady? That would be really terrible. Pardon me?
if nobody in 7th house, then
You have no affair. You have no planet in the 7th house? You probably don't have any planet in the 7th house. That's why you are asking. Unfortunately, I have a planet in my 7th house.
you can't jump to conclusions.
That's why I'm emphasizing. You can't jump to conclusions.
Just because there is a planet, that doesn't mean that there is an affair.
Right, right.
So there must be an indication for an affair, though.
Right.
Right?
Unfortunately, he's
That's
not
not
talking about here.
It's not
This is not enough.
having those planets.
This is not enough. These are, in these initial chapters, he's giving guidelines, basic guidelines. He's setting the guidelines. And in later chapters, he will go through things in more detail. There he will probably, hopefully clarify. Let us see.
Yeah, maybe affair means some cheating, so Rahu cases of that should be involved.
Good. You use standard principles. Venus is the Karaka for love, Karaka for desire, and Rahu is the Karaka for desire. So it's like you are talking about a very special project, a very scandalous project, a very clandestine project. So it's like there are two project managers have to get together, they have to share their resources. That's when it happens. So you can design your own principles. If you understand the fundamentals, you can come up with principles. But the thing will be, if you know somebody who you think has affair, study the chart and see what is going on in the Navamsa of that person. Okay. So in the case of moon is very flexible. He shows all hues and all colors. So you judge it based on the sign occupied by moon. Kuje rajasvala sango vanja sangasya kirtitah. Okay. Kuje rajasvala sango vanja. Vanja means again, in the case of Mars, he will still be interested in barren ladies because Mars also, like Sun, he shows not having children. And also not just Vanja. The other word he uses is Rajasvala Sango. Rajasvala means a young woman who is not married yet, a very young woman. So basically interested in very young, almost children basically, teenagers. So that is what the Mars shows. And then Budhe Vesyacha Hinacha. Budhe, in the case of Mercury, Vesyacha Hinacha means, who is Vesya? No. Yeah. Vesya means prostitute. You are right.
People with what, that Varna.
Vaishya and Vaishya are different. The word he uses is Vaishya. If he said Vaishya, then it is trader. Let's see how he said handlers. He also included trader community. But the thing is, Vaishya and Vaishya are totally different words. There's no link between them at all. So he's not actually saying, actually Vanik also he said. He did say. Budhe Vaishya cha hina cha Vanik stri va kakitya. Okay. So he's covering that also, because actually is the karka for business people. Right. So it is either a prostitute or hina, means somebody with a low character, somebody who's very downtrodden, or vanik stri. Vanik means businesswoman. So somebody from a business class. So in other words, it doesn't have to be a businesswoman. It means a business kind of relationship, a business kind of affair for business reasons. So this kind of affair is indicated by Mercury. Guru Brahmana Bharyasya Garbhini Sanga Evacha. If it is Jupiter in the 7th house, the affair may be with Brahmana Bharya, means the wife of a priest or a Brahmin lady. Or Garbhini means a pregnant lady, affair with a pregnant lady. Okay. Hinaja Pushpini Vatya Mandarahu Phanishwaraihi. Okay. Mandarahu Phanishwaraihi means Mandarahu Phanishwaraihi. Saturn, Rahu and Ketu. If one of them is in the 7th house, then Hinaja Pushpini Vatya. Hina means, again, somebody of a lowly character, like maybe a servant maid or somebody from a low class basically. And Pushpini means somebody very, very old. That's what Pushpini means. So, I don't know the word. Basically, people who finish their menstrual cycle, people after the menopause state, I don't know what they are called in English language. That's what Pushpini means. So basically, very old people, interested in very old ladies, having affairs with very old ladies. In the case of Saturn, Rahu and Ketu. Or somebody from a lowly class. Or somebody could also be an outcast. Could also be a foreigner in the case of Rahu and Ketu. So these are... Now, there is one interesting thing. Can anybody tell me one interesting thing about this list? He said this is the result for Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, Rahu and Ketu. There is one thing interesting here. Venus is missing. Why? So Venus doesn't really show a specific kind of person. Venus actually shows this kind of things. Understand? Pardon me?
He shows wife.
He is not necessarily spouse. He is not necessarily, I mean, of course, he is karaka for spouse also. But the point to note is Venus is the karaka for licentiousness. Venus is the karaka for sex. Venus is the karaka for desire. So Venus is being the karaka for that. He is not mentioning Venus. So this means that he is basically the base, and on that base, based on whether it is Sun, Mars, Mercury, etc., there are different results.
Because he's talking about affairs with Venus, it's a licensed affair, this is unlicensed affair.
Pardon me? Yes, Venus does show licensed affair, but he can also show unlicensed affair if he is basically under the influence of one of these planets. But in general, Venus is the planet who shows all these things.
So there has to be a link between Venus and one of these planets.
There has to be a link with Venus and one of these planets.
Some combination
and
he's not talking about.
Some combination. Basically, if you consider this to be a sin, for example, there has to be. What is the difference between a relationship in a marriage and a relationship outside? One is dharmic, the other is adharmic. So there has to be some link with the 9th house, right? 9th house is the house of dharma. 7th house is the house of relationship. And of course, we earlier talked about Upada. We said that Upada is for marriage, and A7 is Darapada. We call it Darapada. It is the house of affair. So 7th house. So maybe apart from saying 7th house, you can say 7th Pada. Let's say A7 contains let's say Sun and Venus, let us say. So maybe you can apply this combination, right? Because we know that an affair is a tangible thing. We are not talking about a relationship that somebody maintains with someone, that's intangible. But if somebody is seeing somebody is seeing a businesswoman every day, it's something that's tangible, that manifests so that the world can see. So, of course, it may be secretive, but still, it is there, that is manifesting physically. So, materially, not necessarily physically,
Is this
materially.
applicable only to D9 then?
Pardon me?
Is it only in D9 when you look at for these matters, or also?
That is a tricky question, because Parashara said, Navamsa is the chart of seeing spouses. And when it
Dharma
comes
is
to,
involved, right? D9
because dharma is involved, this is the dharmamsa. If you are talking about an adharmic affair, what is the divisional chart? It is not obvious. It could be Rashi itself. Your physical affairs, to satisfy your physical desire with some woman, could be in D1. So my guess is more than Rashi, D1 is more important to see affairs. That is my guess.
Dharma still be.
So you are saying that dharma as well as adharma is in the dharmamsa. So maybe there is a role of navamsa also, very logical thinking. Maybe there is a role of navamsa also. But the fact that somebody has a physical relationship, there has to be a link with Rashi. Of course, if you are talking about physical relationship with wife, then also Rashi should be involved, because anything physical, it has to be linked to the Rashi. But an affair is more physical. It is basically all about physical relationship. So Rashi is even more important. So bottom line is, when it comes to marriage, Rashi and Navamsa are both important when it comes to a relationship. But compared to a marriage, when it comes to an affair, do not ignore Rashi at all. Okay? So with that list, we will, after the 8th verse, we will end for today.
This is applicable to female charts as well.
This should be applicable to female charts as well, of course. Because affairs are not unique to men. If men are having affairs, that means women are also having affairs. Sorry. So we start. Okay, so we are going to take a look at a chart that Seshu was looking at the other day. The data is 1971, November 27, 12:32 a.m. Indian Standard Time, 5 hours 30 minutes east of GMT. The place is Secunderabad, India. 78 degrees 30 minutes east, 17 degrees 27 minutes north. And the question is, okay, what is the question?
Question is, he has a business relationship coming in. He is a chartered accountant.
He is a CA.
He is CA.
Yeah.
He is doing well, and
He is a CA doing well. Yeah.
He is getting new business opportunities.
A new
Business opportunities.
business opportunity
Involving partnership with somebody. So his question is,
involving partnership
right.
with someone.
So his question is,
Yeah.
should I go ahead with that person? How far can I trust and how far can I go in the partnership?
Should I go ahead? Okay, so he has a new partnership that is coming up, a new opportunity, business opportunity, in partnership with somebody else. So he's wondering if the time right now is conducive to taking up this partnership. Is it really, is the person trustworthy? So that is the question. Okay.
So,
Interesting that we have a 7th house kind of matter, partnership.
so I suggested him, I looked at the
So one second, what is the dasha we should use in this case?
I used Vimshatri and Rasnarayan.
Okay. If you look at the notes, we said Shatabdika Dasha. That means we decided that Shatabdika Dasha works well for this class when we looked at this chart earlier. So what is the condition for Shatabdika Dasha?
Lagna is Vargotama.
Lagna is Vargotama. Is Lagna Vargotama here? See, Uttara Pura Phalguni first pada means it is Vargotama. But if you want to be comfortable, I can show you Navamsa. See, Navamsa is in Leo. The Lagna is in Leo in both Rashi and Navamsa. So we should use the Shatabdika Dasha. Okay? Okay, first let us see what logic you used, okay? And then we'll use Shatabdika. Use Vimshottari, regular Vimshottari, okay? What did you do with Vimshottari? He's running Mercury Dasha right now from 2001 till 2018. And he is about to start Sun under Dasha. Excellent. So, this partnership is coming in Sun, okay? What is your advice?
Coming in Sun, and looking at the Shamsa, the Sun is 8th Lord conjoining 7th house, it's conjoining 7th Lord in 10th house.
Yeah?
So it's a combination of 7th and 8th Lord
Yeah.
happening in 10th house. So there is an affliction to your 7th house of partnerships and business and involvement with others,
Yeah.
having an 8th Lord affair happening in your Karmasthana in 10th house. So this is not a real good combination. And Sun is more so, one good aspect here is 8th lord is debilitated in this.
Yeah.
So that is one good point, but 8th lord involvement is 7th. I suggested, of course there are other things too, but just from the face of this I suggested you can go because you cannot avoid partnerships in business you're doing.
Right.
But involvement, just don't go as you used to.
Yeah.
Make a second guess. Make second thought before you invest anything.
Okay. Good. Okay, so let us see what Shatabdika Dasha is running and let's reconcile both Shatabdika and Vimshottari. Okay. So what is the Dasha he is running as per the Shatabdika Dasha? He is stuck in Saturn for a long time. He's stuck. Okay.
And also,
What is the Prachanta Dasha then? Because if we are talking about a 7-year period, what is the temporary influence he is coming under? The short-term influence. See, from August 2007 till February 2008, he is running the Sun Prachanta Dasha in Saturn Dasha, Saturn Mahadasha. You understand? So he is coming under Sun influence as per Shatabdika Dasha. And of course, as you correctly noticed, in Vimshottari Dasha, he is around the same time. PVR take a couple of weeks. He is coming under Sun influence again in the other Dasha, right? So basically, from this summer till next spring, he is under Sun's influence based on both the Nakshatra Dashas. So some result relating to Sun is going to be given, right? Now,
and also there is also parallelity to the other question.
There is what?
There is also another point in his business is he has business since last 12-13 years.
Okay.
With another partner, another chartered accountant.
Okay.
They are together in one month.
Okay.
The other person is interested in some other activity now and would like to leave.
Okay.
And that's happening, that negotiation is happening for the last 1 year.
So one partner actually wants to leave.
One wants to leave.
That's actually very important data. Old partner wants to leave.
Old partner wants to leave. And I suggested that's going to happen in the next few months.
Okay. Okay. Fine.
And then his question was, is that for good or not? Is that good for me or not?
Okay, we'll see. Now, the 7th Lord, like we said, like you correctly said, 7th house is the house of relationship, business, partnership, etc. But what actually shows a tangible partnership? I am with this person, I am with that person, I am in a relationship with somebody. It's A7. We are talking about the Arudha Pada, which is the tangible. So A7 is the most important thing. And before we do any analysis, Dasha, etc., A7 is in 10th house. So in general, is it like, and of course 7th Lord is also there. So 7th Lord and A7 being in the 10th house, is it likely that this person will be involved in a lot of partnerships? Yes. And in general, is it a lucky person or unlucky with respect to career? How is career?
Lucky person, because they happen to be in the Venus house especially.
Yeah, apart from it, the 10th Lord Venus happens to be a Yogaraka. He is in Lagna and he is in a friendly house or not?
Yes.
He is in an Adhimitra Sthana. Saturn is a good friend, not just a friend, good friend. So, being in an Adhimitra Sthana in Lagna, in general, any quadrant or trine placement for 10th Lord is good for career in the Shamsa, right? So, and of course, Venus happens to be the 10th Lord in Rashi also. So, he being in a Kendra in an Adhimitra Sthana in the Dashamsa is basically an auspicious thing. So this is an auspicious Dashamsa.
Big money from his business because of Jupiter involvement.
Jupiter and Venus, both of them are there. Yetan is in Lagna. So Yetan is a very important
Jupiter is
pada.
devastated, right? It doesn't.
But he is the 3rd and 12th Lord. He is a functional malefic. Debilitation of a functional malefic is auspicious. And natural benefics, 2 natural benefics, Jupiter and Venus are in Lagna. So when 2 natural benefics are in Lagna, Lagna gets a strength of its own. So Lagna is strong and the 10th Lord is quite strongly placed in Lagna. Any planets placed in Lagna, if they are good for the Lagna, if they are benefics for the Lagna, they will do immense good. And this Venus happens to be aspecting the 7th house. And who is the Karaka for business, entrepreneurship, etc.? Mercury and Mars. Mars is the planet of fire, and any entrepreneurship there has to be some fire. And Venus is the karaka for water. So it's basically balancing diplomacy, balancing your relationships. So that way, like you said, Venus is also karaka for partnerships. And Mercury, what is Mercury? He is basically, he is in general karaka for career, not just business, in general karaka for career. And also he is the karaka for being multifaceted. He is the karaka for multifacetedness. So that way Mercury, Venus, Mars, everybody is, there are several karakas for business. But the guy who shows the fire inside you, the entrepreneurship, the desire to do something, desire to make more money, desire to excel, that is Mars. So Mars,
Here the debilitation of Mars it doesn't take a different.
no, it makes him weak. He is not really strong. But the thing is, he is the karaka of another kamatrikona. See, 11th house, the house of fulfillment of desires, labha, gains. That house, the lord of that house happens to be in the 7th house. And look at A3. A3 is the tangible manifestation of your determination, your initiative. So it shows starting a company, registering a company, etc. Because that is a tangible manifestation of your initiative.
Because it is in 11th or because it's
In general,
not-
A3 is important. Third house is the starting initiative. And A3 is a manifestation of that initiative. So that happens to be in the 11th house, and its lord happens to be in the 7th house. So Mars is connecting all the three kamatrikonas. He is the lord of A3, he is the lord of 11th house, he is in the 7th house. So whenever you see a planet connecting various arthatrikonas or various kamatrikonas, he becomes a key planet for that trikona, right? Like we discussed earlier. So, in general, Mars, the karaka of 3rd house, the owner of A3, the owner of 11th house, being in the 7th house, he has a good chance of giving business, etc. And A7 is in the 10th house. So this is actually a chart that shows business. This is not really a chart of somebody who works for somebody who works 9 to 5 every day and makes his livelihood. This is a chart of a businessman, somebody who takes initiative. So that is the first thing to note, and this is a lucky chart. Now, what exactly does Sun indicate? Is Sun a good planet or bad planet for the career here? What do you think?
He's the eighth house.
He is the 8th lord. Is he a functional benefic or functional malefic?
He's the malefic, right? Being the 8th lord.
Strictly going by Parashara's guideline, is 8th lord a malefic? He is neutral. 3rd, 6th and 11th are malefic houses. The lords of those become malefic. The 5th, 9th are 1, 5 and 9 are benefic. 2, 8 and 12 are 2, 8 and 12 are neutral. And what about Kendras? The 4 and 7, 4, 7 and 10, they are neutral if the planet is a natural malefic, and they are malefic if the planet is a natural benefic. This is what Parashara taught. And then if a planet owns 2 houses, 2 signs, you look at the classification of both and take the average. If he is neutral one way and malefic another way, he is still malefic. If he is benefic one way, malefic one way, he is neutral, and so on. So here, Sun owns only 1 house, so it's easier. You don't have to take an average. It's the 8th house. It's a neutral house. So he's not actually a functional malefic. He's a neutral planet. But in general, it's a Dusthana. So Dusthana Lord being debilitated is good. And he's a neutral planet. He is with the 7th Lord. He is with the 7th Lord. So a neutral planet and the 7th Lord. By the way, is Moon is aspected?
aspected by the Lagna.
Aspected by Lagna Lord Saturn as well as Mars. Mars, like we said, is a key planet for entrepreneurship. And that Mars happens to be aspecting 10th house and A7. Now, is Moon a functional malefic or functional benefic or neutral? Functionally neutral in this chart. Can you guys tell me based on Parashara? Why is he a malefic?
He's a benefic because he's Shukranavami.
This is Shukranavami, so he is a benefic, natural benefic.
The lordship makes him
7th lordship makes him a malefic. So actually, if you look at Moon and Sun here, it is Moon who's a functional malefic, and it is Sun who's a functional benefic. See, what is the rule for quadrants? If a natural benefic owns a quadrant, he becomes a functional malefic. If a natural malefic owns a quadrant, he becomes neutral according to Parashara. So here, Moon is the 7th lord. So he is either neutral or benefic functionally. For that you have to see what is his inherent nature. And inherently, moon doesn't have a fixed nature like Jupiter and Venus. Jupiter and Venus are always benefic. Mars and Saturn are always malefic. But moon, it depends on the Paksha. And this is Shukla Navami. That means he's a benefic. So being a benefic who owns a quadrant, he becomes a malefic. So moon is a functional malefic. So moon and sun, there is one functional malefic and functionally neutral planet. But bottom line is, one of them shows business, and sun, being the 8th lord, he can show setbacks in career, or he could also show gambling in career. 8th house is the house of risk taking, right? It is the house of gambling. And which Amsha is he in? He is in Kubera Amsha. So what does Kubera Amsha show? He shows basically money, money-mindedness, working for money and getting money. So if the 8th lord is in Kubera Amsha, what would that show? And also, see, Lagna Lord Saturn is also in Kubera Amsha. So he has 2 planets in Kubera Amsha, 2 key planets. Now, so Sun is in Kubera Amsha. He's not so bad. He's a neutral planet. He's not really so bad. He could show gambling. He could also show changes. 8th house is not just the house of setbacks and disappointments. 8th house is also the house of sudden changes. Losing a partner, getting a new partner, stopping the line of work. Maybe you are working on individuals until now and suddenly you decide, I will work on businesses. Stuff like that. Or suddenly, it can also show business links, political links, being politically linked. So many things can be possible if the 8th house is Leo. And the thing is, like I said earlier, the key thing is who's the project manager here as far as business is concerned. See, these guys are occupying A7, so they give a business, partnership. Who's the Karaka for partnership and business? Mars. And is Sun a friend of Mars? Yes, he's an Adhimitra of Mars. So both Moon and Sun actually. So being Adhimitras of Mars and being in an Arudapada relating to a house which is signified by Mars, they will cooperate fully with Mars and give a partnership. So both Moon and Sun periods are quite conducive. Except that, being the 8th lord, Sun can give some changes, some sudden changes. But in my judgment, he is not really inauspicious at all.
So whether Sun is going to give him a negative effect or a positive effect will depend upon if he is a functional benefit or a malefic.
Functional?
If his final agenda is being a malefic or
right.
benefit.
In a particular chart, the 8th lord could be a functional malefic. Let's say Scorpio is the Lagna. The 8th lord Mercury, even though he may, let's say he is also debilitated. He is the debilitated 8th lord. But he is a functional malefic. Here, Sun is a functionally neutral planet. So you wouldn't really call him a terrible planet. He's just a neutral planet.
So his sudden changes are not going to be negative disasters in this time.
Right. Exactly. But actually we are not done with the analysis. There is more. Who shows fortune? Because the 9th house is the house of fortune, right? So see the 9th lord, the Karaka of 9th, etc. and see the relation of Sun with them. And also 8th house is the house of, like we said earlier, 8th house, it's like a group that does 2 kinds of work. A positive work and a negative work. 8th house shows 2 kinds of matters. One is sudden change for good or sudden change for bad. 8th house is suddenness. It can be both aspects. So how do you see both? For the sudden change in a negative way, who are the Karakas? Rahu, Mars, Rahu, Ketu, Mars. These are the Karakas for sudden negative change. And is Sun on good terms with them? Not really. When it comes to Rahu, he is not really a friend of Rahu, right? On the other hand, look at the Karaka for fortune. Who is the Karaka for fortune? Mercury to some extent, also Jupiter. Jupiter is the Karaka for fortune and blessings from previous lives. So, if you look at Jupiter, Sun is a friend of Jupiter. Not just a friend, he is an Adhimitra, because Jupiter is close to him now. Sun on the other hand, Rahu on the other hand is an Adhisatru, because he is a Satru, also temporary Satru. Jupiter is a Mitra as well as temporary Mitra. So Jupiter, the Karaka of fortune in general, is a Adhimitra, is an Adhimitra to Sun, and also Mercury, the ninth lord of fortune, he is also Adhimitra.
But they don't have any direct relation as much as Rahu has a aspect on him.
Right, but the thing
Rahu
is,
has a direct reality on Sun, whereas Jupiter only has...
he has, see, this is the thing. Now, Rahu has aspect on Sun, but the thing is, they don't really see each other eye to eye. So, Sun does not necessarily have to cooperate with Rahu agenda. Rahu has an agenda to give him some cheating in his career, to give a big setback, to give a worry, etc. But Sun is also interested in that because his group, he is the 8th lord. So his group is partly responsible for that. But his group has the opportunity to work on two different things. And he doesn't like this project manager. He likes the other project managers. You understand what I'm saying? Now, I said, apart from Jupiter, instead of Rahu, who Sun has a better relationship, I also mentioned 9th house. See, Sun is not only an Adhimitra, not only a Mitra of Mercury. Mercury and Sun are friends. I mean, at least Sun considers Mercury to be a friend. And he's a temporary friend because they are 2 houses away. So, he is basically, he is friendly with Mercury, the 9th lord. Not only 9th Karaka Jupiter, but also 9th lord. Moreover, he has Argala on the 9th house. So, he contributes to fortune. Being in the 10th house, which is the second house from 9th house, having Argala on the 9th house, he feeds the fortune. The 10th house feeds the fortune. And not only the house, the A9, the Arudha of the 9th house, which shows some kind of fortune, a tangible manifestation of the fortune. And A8 is also there, which means some suddenness. So, 9th Lord Mercury is in that, and Sun is having Argala on that, 11th house Argala of fulfillment. So, he causes a final fructification of some fortunate event, which happens suddenly. So, because of all these things, he has a link to the 9th house, A9, and also he is on good terms with the 9th Lord and good terms with the 9th Karaka. So, he is likely to, instead of giving cheating, etc., he is likely to give fortune, a fortunate development in the career. So, my guess is the partnership that is breaking now is for good, and the partnership that is coming now is also for good. So there are some positive changes. That is what I see in this period, in this time frame. But the thing is, instead of jumping into it now, you should wait till August also. Wait till Sun Antardasha or Pratyantardasha, based on which Dasha you are using, completely sets in. And let us quickly see the Tithi Pravesh chart. 2006, right. How is the Tithi Pravesh chart for this year? Who's the Hora Lord? Mercury is the Hora Lord, right? Now, are we sure of this Dashamsa? We have a 2 minutes to 14 second leeway. We will assume that we have rectified and we are confident that it's not more than 1/4 minute wrong. So let us assume that this Lagna is right. Now, we said Mercury is the Karaka, okay? What is the Dasha running right now? When he came to you, Jupiter Dasha is running. Actually, even today, Jupiter Dasha is running. Is Jupiter Dasha a good Dasha for looking at partnerships, etc.?
So should we see when he came to me, is just 2 days away, or should we see what's starting the next 2 days?
We'll see that also, but we'll see right now what is going on. Right now, the Jupiter Dasha is going on, right? Lagna Lord in the 7th house. So that is why he is so concerned about partnership, business, etc. 7th house is the house of partnership and business. Right? And of course, Jupiter aspects the A7. And A7 is in the 11th house. So is that good for partnerships? Can there be some gain with respect to partnership this year? Yes. So Jupiter, as far as A7 is concerned, taking A7, tangible partnership as Lagna, is Jupiter well placed? He is in the 9th house. So Lagna Lord, so he is a functional benefit in the 9th house from this particular Arudha. So it is good for that Arudha. Similarly, AL, if you see Arudha Lagna, Jupiter owns Arudha Lagna and he occupies the 10th from it. Jupiter in the 10th from Aru Lagna gives a very auspicious image. It gives the image of a very noble person. So this is a good year for his image. He will do quite well. And how is the 7th Lord Mercury? The 7th Lord Mercury is in the 3rd house of initiative, new drive. So 7th Lord Mercury is well placed in the 3rd house. And he has a Raj Yoga. He is the Hora Lord, absolutely. And he has a Raj Yoga with Ketu. The 7th and 4th Lord Mercury with the 9th Lord Ketu gives a Raj Yoga. Both of them are in friendly sign. So there is some Raj Yoga involving new initiative. 3rd house is the house of new initiative. Relating to 4th house or 7th house. 7th house shows relationship. But there is UL there. What does it show? UL is letting go. 12th house. For me?
He might make investment.
Either he may make an investment because you are letting some money go because of your initiative. It can mean some investment, or it can also mean because 7th Lord is in UL, letting some partner go also it can mean. So there is some change basically, some change is indicated, but the bottom line is Mercury is the ruler of the year. He is the Lord of one Kama Trikona in another Kama Trikona. He is giving a Raj Yoga and Jupiter is aspecting him. So it looks quite auspicious to me. But look at Rashi. How is Mercury, the Hora Lord? He is the 7th Lord in the 8th house. That's a combination. That's a very bad combination. So what does it show? Physically he is working hard during this year. He is working hard, but career-wise, the professional environment-wise, things are very positive. But this is a year of some labor, some hard work, some anxiety, physical and mental anxiety also. Why did I say mental anxiety? Because even taking moon as Lagna, for mind, Rahu is in Lagna. If moon is in 12th house, affected by Rahu, a very strong Rahu I may say, because that is Rahu's Mulatrikona, Rahu's own sign. And Mercury is the 5th and 8th Lord. And he is in Badhasthana. So 8th Lord in Badhasthana. See, if there is any link between a Dusthana and Badhasthana, that is very bad. Badhasthana itself is bad. But if the 8th Lord or 6th Lord happens to be there, it's even worse. So the Badhaka Lord being, and the 8th Lord being in Badhasthana, from moon, is not really conducive. So physically he will work hard, mentally he is under tremendous stress during this year. But professionally I think this particular period is a good period. But should she jump? Pardon?
The contrary, the Rashi, the 9th house is very strong.
Yeah.
With two benefics and two malefics there with strong planets.
Yeah.
So the aspect of negative tension and the negativeness of the Mercury from the physical plane, the 9th house might compensate that.
It is compensating. So it's not like he is worried, running around. Because that is also there. The 9th house is there. So he is basically very, also he feels blessed, he feels lucky. So both of them are there. But by the way, the 9th house contains two bad Arudhas. The Rogapada and UL. The Arudhas of two Dusthanas are there. Right? A6 and UL are there. And also 6th and 8th lords are there. Affecting Lagna Lord. The 6th and 8th lords are there. 6th, 8th and 3rd lords. Basically Venus and Sun are functional malefics. Venus and Sun are functional malefics for this Lagna. They are affecting Mars and Jupiter. So there is some tension in the 9th house also. Where is Sun? 13 degrees. Where is Mars? 1 degree. Where is Jupiter? 7 degrees. Where is Venus? 21 degrees. So Jupiter is closest to, he is close to Sun. Of course, Sun he is close to Mars. So that is good. Mars and Jupiter are quite close. So that is the blessing. But the thing is, there is some tension also. So physically, he will be a little tense during this year. But I'm not saying it's a bad chart at all. But importantly, if you look at A7 shows the tangible manifestation of your relationships. So it shows who you are moving with. So that A7 happens to be in the 9th house. So he is, pardon me? Yeah, dharmic people or fortunate people, basically is good. There is Mars and Jupiter there. There is a Guru Mangal Yoga. So this doesn't look bad at all. But the thing is, Rahu Dasha is starting soon. So if he was considering this during the current time, he was considering during a very good time, during Jupiter Dasha. Even Mercury Dasha, which happened in February, April time frame, was a good period to basically come into a new partnership or consider new people, etc. The current period is good. But how is Rahu period? Between July, basically it will start very soon until the end of August. How is this period? In the mental physical plane, Moon is affected by Rahu, so it shows a lot of anxiety and tension physically. In the 12th house too. It could show travels, etc. But in general, it shows a lot of mental tension.
Could there be losses though? Could there be, because it's the 12th house?
There could be, but the thing is, if you want to predict losses in career, I would rather look at the Dashamsa. If you look at Dashamsa, see, there are so many possibilities. 12th house planet can show some injury to the foot. There are so many things. Or lack of good sleep. In general, anxiety basically. 12th house can show anxiety.
He has one thing when they're getting that he's getting a foreign, he's getting a Singapore opportunity in a few days. Something is cooking up suddenly.
He can go because Rahu is in the 12th house. This is what I mentioned. Foreign travel is also possible with Rahu. That is why I mentioned. So Rahu is in the 12th house, 12th lord, and Karaka. So he is like the group manager, project manager, group member, everything basically. It's very conducive. So he should consider that. Okay. Now, how is the Dashamsa? How is Rahu in the Dashamsa? Moon and Sun are in the 9th house. The 5th lord and 6th lord together is Dhimanta Yoga, right? So Moon and Sun are giving Dhimanta Yoga, but Rahu is the 12th lord who is affecting them in the 9th house. He is in Manakaraka Sthana. For Rahu, the 9th house is Manakaraka Sthana according to Jataka Parjatam. So,
That is good.
pardon me? Why is it good?
He's a 12th lord in Madhya.
12th lord in Manakaraka Sthana. So 12th house basically suffers. So some losses, etc. will be erased or will be avoided. So that is good. But the thing is it a good time to jump into a new partnership?
Rahu we should probably avoid.
That is what I would say. As far as partnership is concerned, he doesn't really have anything. Of course, he has an Agla and A7, but he is not really playing a big role as far as the partnership is concerned. But how is Venus? If you avoid Rahu, how is Venus? Venus is a functional malefic. Venus is a functional malefic in this Dashamsa. He is the 3rd and 8th lord in the 12th house. Right? But 3rd and 8th lord in the 12th house. He gives Viparita Rajoga.
Functional benefit is that he's a 8th lord is neutral, right?
Yeah.
He's a 3rd and 8th lord. Okay, so
Is there something in the software that will tell you what are the functional malefics and benefits for each chart?
I think so. Actually, functional benefits, I don't think I program.
I think that will be useful.
Yeah.
Because that's a little more complicated. There are too many rules there.
left side exercise student.
Right. Yeah. After it becomes open source, you can add. You are a software programmer. Okay, yeah, that will be useful. You're absolutely right. Okay, so now, if you have to advise him to get into the partnership in Venus Dasha or Rahu Dasha, which will you advise?
Venus.
Why?
Or even for that matter, wait till November if we can.
Yeah. Why Venus? Because see, Rahu, he is causing eclipse to Moon and Sun. The 5th Lord and 6th Lord, which are giving Dhimanta Yoga, he is causing an eclipse. On the positive side, he is aspecting Mercury, the 7th Lord, but again, he is the 12th Lord aspecting Mercury. It's not really very auspicious. This is a good time to get rid of a partner because 12th Lord is aspecting 7th Lord. So, breaking off from the old partner, this is a good time. But to enter into a new partnership, this is not really a conducive time. Right? And Venus, if you take A7 as Lagna, Venus has Argala on it. But then, a functional malefic having Argala on A7, it's not really conducive. On the positive side, Venus is the dispositor of Mercury, the 7th Lord. But still, he is the UL Lord of compromises and losses. He is in 12th house of losses. He's not really that conducive. Pardon me?
Even Venus is not conducive.
He's not conducive. So, I'm not really impressed either with Rahu or Venus. How about Sun? So. He's also a functional malefic. He's a 6th lord in A6. He can even give thoughts of why business, let me just work for somebody. That kind of thoughts he can give. So these guys are not really, right now until July 19 is good, but after that to actually enter into the partnership, the time is not really conducive. If he can somehow avoid, it will be better. How is the next year?
Or enter before 19.
Or enter before 19, but that will be too fast. But it can be a in principle kind of thing, not really paperwork,
But
etc.
this actually contradicts, when we looked at the natal charts,
Yeah.
it was good.
It was good, but that was from this August till next March or April.
So it's a long period.
It's a long period. That is why we are looking at Tithi Pravesh. We want to give more fine-tuned advice. We know that during this period, some changes will happen for good in his business, in his
Overall it
partnership.
will be good, but the next 2 months will be
Is it in August or September or November or December? We don't know for sure. So you can either look at transits or further subdivisions. You can look at Sukshmantar Dasha in Sabyak Dasha, Prachantar Dasha in Jyotir Dasha, or better, more than that, that is basically more unreliable. The better is either Gochara or the annual chart. So we are looking at the annual chart to see which period is how. But the thing is, in Venus period, in Rahu period, travel abroad is a good idea. In Venus period, he will be working hard because of his career, being the 8th lord. So he will be doing a lot of due diligence, lot of paperwork, etc. But how is the next year, let us see. How is the coming year? Who is the Hora lord? Saturn is the Hora lord. Okay? Saturn is the Hora lord. Pardon me? Yeah. How are the dashas? The very first dasha will be that of Sun. Sun will be the first dasha. The second dasha will be that of Moon. And then Mars dasha will come. So which dasha is conducive to entering into a new partnership?
Sun wouldn't be bad. So Sun is the 10th lord.
Actually, let's see the date when this is coming. November 19 is when this is coming up. So November 19 means you have just 6 days of Sun dasha. So if you can work out during that time, Sun is the 9th lord. Of course, he is in the 8th house, but that's not bad. 8th house is the house of suddenness. And being the 9th lord, he shows fortune. He is a functional benefit. Being in the 8th house, he shows sudden development.
Won't it be like he's in the 12th from 9th?
He is in the 12th from 9th, yes. That way it is inauspicious. Pardon me?
He's letting a fortune go. That won't be the
It can be letting a fortune go. It can also be making some compromise for a fortune, for a future fortune. It can be so many things. But bottom line is his agenda is 9th house. And Arudha Lagna and A5 are together in the 9th house. So if the Arudha of Lagna and 5th house are together, it's very auspicious. And this being in the 9th house, this is very, it's a very important house. And the Lord, and he is also in 11. 11 is, what is 11? Tangible gains. It's the fructification of desire. 7th house is the house of fructification of desire. And 11 is tangible. So planets in 11 can show some fulfillment. You are working for something, finally it happens. That is what 11 can show. And like I said, AL and A5, Arudha Lagna and A5 being together is like Lagna Lord and 5th Lord being together. It's actually even better because this is more material. The tangible article reflecting on yourself, your image, and the tangible article reflecting on your fame, your capability. There is a confluence between them. And also it happens in the 9th house from Lagna. So it is very auspicious. Moreover, if you remember, we mentioned this earlier also. If you see some key planet giving some key result in the, in the natal chart, if the dasha is running, etc., if that planet takes part in a nice yoga or a similar yoga in the Tithi Pravesh chart, the result will be more accentuated. And if you remember, Sun was the planet. He was the 8th lord in A7 and all that. Sun-Moon combination actually in specific. So that combination is occurring again, Sun Moon are joining together again, and again there is a 8th house link showing some gambling. There will be some risk taking, just like in the natal chart. And it's the same Sun. Moreover, just look at Rashi. Apart from Dashamsa, look at Rashi. Sun is the 10th lord of Keri. So he is actually the controller for Keri, apart from being the 9th lord in Dashamsa. And he joins the 5th lord Jupiter in Lagna. And A10 is in Lagna. The Rajapada is in Lagna. So in Rashi also things are looking very good. So I strongly advise, because there is ample time, I strongly advise him to work out all the details, finish all the paperwork, and make sure that this happens in the November 19 to 25 time frame. That will be very auspicious for him during Sun Dasha, after this year starts.
You mean signing his actual thing to start?
Signing his actual partnership. He can enter an informal agreement before, but if he can sign during that time, it will be very auspicious for him, those 6 days. So I strongly advise that. Okay. What, any other points you guys want to mention?
I looked at one other point in this
Yeah.
in general is about yesterday Saturn moved into, his Gandanta moved into Leo yesterday.
Okay. Depending on the Ainamsa, it is basically
No,
within this week, yeah. Right.
even if
Right,
even
right.
if finance is just
Right.
so, and he is Leo Lagna,
Yeah.
and
Not Leo Lagna, he is in Leo. Yes.
no, not in.
Yeah, this is the chart right now. I'm saying, don't say he's in Leo Lagna, say he's in Leo Rashi. Oh, you are talking about, I'm sorry. So you are not talking about, you didn't jump back to,
You are talking Gochara in his chart.
you are talking about Gochara in this chart. Excellent. Go
Gochara in
ahead.
his chart.
Yeah.
He is a Leo Lagna with transiting Saturn Gochara right now.
Right.
So in Saturn in Manakarakasana, I asked him to take extreme care in his health, especially with stomach ache.
Okay.
Because
You are too specific.
because of travel and other things, it is, and also Saturn.
Okay, you are not only too specific but too logical. Okay.
So
Right.
there is another healthcare I asked him to take on.
Okay, good. You did a good thing. The thing is, right now may not be too bad, but the thing is, when Saturn chances over exact Lagna, there can be some problem.
That means even at 16 degrees.
For me?
At 16 degrees.
Right. Right.
Should be a few months away.
That's the way. You don't have to worry, but there can be. The thing is, why did I say that? Saturn is the 6th lord of Roga, disease, in this chart, right? He's the 6th lord, and he's in general Karaka of disease, and here he's aspecting Lagna by the 4th aspect, a 3/4 4th aspect. So, and moreover, that is not enough. The other link he has to the Lagna is, he's aspecting Lagna Lord. He's aspecting the Lagna Lord. And reasonably close. Look at Saturn. He's at 9.5 degrees. Look at Sun. He's 10.5 degrees. So within 1 degree, Sun is being aspected by Saturn. Is that auspicious for health? No. Sun is the Karaka for vitality. Saturn is the Karaka for disease. And Sun is the Lagna Lord. Saturn is the 6th lord. So they are the opposite poles.
So which part?
And one second, let me finish.
In general, he should have health problems too.
He may have.
Right.
But the thing is, Jupiter, even though he is 8th lord, he is also the 5th lord. And the Jupiter is with the Lagna lord. So Jupiter is protecting. But the thing is, he is in Saturn Dasha right now. As per Satabdika Dasha, he is running Saturn Dasha, Saturn Anta Dasha. So he is under Saturn influence already. For a long time, he is already under Saturn influence. So there may already be some health problems. But if there are not, the Saturn transit over Lagna may trigger it. He will be transiting Lagna and he will be aspecting moon sign. The other link is, Saturn's sons are in Lagna. The sons of Saturn who advance Saturn's agenda, Mandi and Gulika, they are in Lagna. So because of all these links, when Saturn touches either Mandi's longitude or Gulika's longitude or even Lagna's longitude, during that time there can be some worries relating to health. So if you look at next few years annual chart, maybe you can see which year really stands out. But during the next 2-3 years, there can be some health worry also.
Which health issue do you usually look at in this case? Do you say because it's 6th house, do you say pancreas, or do you say it is?
Which is 5th house? Leo?
Yeah.
So when Saturn is transiting in Leo, People for whom Saturn is a bad planet, they will all have stomach aches.
Maybe.
See,
But that's
basically,
the first house.
No, because it's the fifth house.
exactly. For him, this is the first house. This can be head. See, remember this. When you look at the 8th Lord's affliction, see which sign he occupies. See what that sign shows. So if the 8th Lord in a chart is in Leo, say there will be digestive problems. So when you are looking at 8th Lord, look at the natural sign. If you are looking, this is from one of the classics. If you look at the 6th Lord, look at the house instead of the natural sign of the natural zodiac. So here we are not worried about the 8th Lord. We are worried about the 6th Lord, Saturn, whose dasha is running right now and whose transit is coming on Lagna. So see where Saturn is. Now don't look at the
Don't look at natural zodiac.
natural zodiac. Look at the house.
That means
So 6th Lord is in which house?
that means that if it is 8th house, take consider the natural zodiac.
Right. If the 8th Lord you are talking about. If the 8th Lord's affliction is giving problems, look at natural zodiac. If the 6th Lord's affliction is giving, one is called Nija Badha, other is called Agami Badha in the classics. But anyway, so here, what house does Saturn occupy? 10th house. What does 10th house Saturn give? Problems in knees. There can be some arthritis, etc. There can be some problem in the legs. Well, actually, we shouldn't be too specific. Never say just knees because you are pushing yourself into a corner. Say legs, thighs, knees, ankles, calves, everything you are covered. And it's not really that bad. You don't really have to be too specific. Because if you want to be too specific, you have to look at the kanas, all that stuff. And the Shastra is not perfect. So there is a good chance that he will have some problem in the leg area. So he should watch out. So your prediction is a very smart prediction. But if you look at the next year, it doesn't look too bad. Sun and Jupiter are in Lagna, they are blessing the Lagna. Even though Lagna Lord Mars is in 8th house, I am not really concerned. If you look at 2008, how is 2008 year? Again, the Lagna Lord Jupiter is in Lagna, he is blessing it. How is the Hora Lord? Sun, he is the 9th Lord. So again, I am not too concerned. So it doesn't seem like he is going to have big problems. How is 2009? How is 2009? There is Satya Yoga. See, this is 2009-2010 chart. I don't know if Saturn will still be in Leo or not, but the thing is, apart from it, he has already triggered in his transit, probably he will still be there. And his Dasha and then Antardasha are still running. And this year's chart, if you see, Gurika and Mandi are again in Lagna, like in the natal chart. I told you earlier, when certain combinations that are present in the natal chart come back, they can trigger bad events. So Gulika and Mandi are in Lagna again, in a fiery Lagna, just like natal chart, What?
On Rahu Ketu.
And Rahu Ketu axis is on Lagna, Rahu is on Lagna, and he is very close to Lagna. Rahu is at 29.5 degrees, Lagna is at 28 degrees. So Rahu is just about to rise. And Saturn is also in a quadrant. And he is in Vrutshapada, A8, which shows tangible suffering. And A6 is being affected by him. So A6, UL and A8. So only Arudhas that are in quadrants and affected by Saturn, by Rashi Drishti, are the 3 Dusthana Arudhas. So all the Dusthana Arudhas are in quadrants. 3 malefic planets are in quadrants. Most of the malefic planets, natural malefics, are in quadrants. So this is a Sapta Yoga, a very terrible Sapta Yoga. Luckily, actually, who's the ruler of the year? Venus. So ruler of the year happens to be Venus, not one of these Saturn. He is not Saturn, but he is 6th Lord, 6th and 11th Lord, in the 11th house. He is a functional malefic. 6th house, if the Lord of the year rules 6th house, it shows diseases. So it doesn't look good. So I am actually concerned. I am not concerned for the next 1.5 years. And even look at Shashtamsa. The ruler of the year is a fixed debilitated in Lagna. Mandi is there. Rahu Ketu are in Lagna. 6th Lord is there. And Lagna Lord Mercury is in the 6th house with the 8th Lord. So Shashtamsa is also showing some disease. So this is the year. This is the year.
You know if he is healthy? He is healthy.
So he has the blessings of Jupiter. So he should. So the thing is, we don't really have to tell him to eat well, etc. He should be fine now. But if he comes back to you, or you can tell him now itself, Tell him 2009, 2010 will be a bad year for your health, can be a bad year for your health. So starting from 2008, start reading Triyambaka Yajamahe, the Mrityunjaya mantra every day, one mala. You must do, you tell him. Also tell him, because Rahu is in Lagna, in both Rashi and Shashtamsa, praying to Durga will be very auspicious. You can read Durga Suktam or Durga Saptasloki or Saptasati if he has that much time. At least Durga Saptasloki. So read Durga Saptasloki and also read Mrityunjaya mantra. Do it every day, not after 2009 but before. Start from the beginning of 2009 and build the ground. But the thing is that combination looks so bad that there will be some negative results despite this. And let's quickly go back to the natal chart, see what Antardasha is running then. We'll use Shatabdika Dasha. We'll use the Shatabdika Dasha instead of Vimshottari. Shatabdika, Mr. Saturn, Sun, Moon will be over and it will be, Venus will also be over. It will be the Dasha of Mercury that will be running right then. Or Jupiter. So Mercury or Jupiter. So probably Mercury is the one to be concerned about because Mercury is the Rahupada Lord. Okay. Let's see Vimshottari. What is the Dasha running? He is running Mercury. And during that time he will be running Mars Dasha. Does Mars have any chance of showing any health problems?
Part of Moon also, right? Because maybe end of
No. It's basically Mars. Basically Mars under Dasha. Mercury Mars. Is there a chance that Mercury Mars can give health problems? Well, Mars is the Badhaka Lord, and he is with Moon, who is the Mrityupada Lord, but it doesn't look too bad based on the natal chart. If you look at the Bhoga from Mercury, Mars is in the third house. From Mars, the third house is in Badhakasthana. And here he is debilitated in Lagna. He is the Rahupada Lord. Okay, so bottom line is, it doesn't look terrible, right? If you look at the natal chart, Vimshottari as well as Shatabdika, it doesn't look too bad. So it may not be that bad. Hopefully it won't be that bad.
So how do we consolidate those two of the terribleness in Tripravesha and not too bad in the Rashi? So we take an average of these two.
Tripravesh is basically Rashi, the natal chart basically sets the basis. And Tripravesh is a fluctuation over that basis. So if the Rashi is not really showing big suffering, it may not be a big suffering. But the thing is, during that year, there can be one big accident. There can be one big accident and he may be in hospital for a month. So it may be, when you look back from the perspective of that year, it will stand out as a big event. Because in that year's chart, there is a big combination, Sarpa Yoga and all that negativity. So within that 1 year, it will feel like a really terrible event. But when you look back after 10 years, it may not really feel like a really terrible event. You see what I am saying? On the other hand, if somebody is hospitalized, there is a cancer, he fights cancer or some big disease he fights, then it should be shown in natal chart also as a terrible period. So it's basically the degree. The degree, certain events stand out even from the point of view of whole life. Certain events stand out from the point of view of a particular year. But during that particular year, he will, whatever happens, he will be so troubled by it and he will be asking you when will it be over. So there will be something. But what I mean to say is, why I looked at Rashi, the natal chart is, it won't be terrible like a big disease that will take a few years. It will be basically within the span of that year. Something that will take a month or so during that year. So things seem fine. Let him go through this partnership. Try to shoot November time frame that I mentioned. Is there any worship that you will mention to him?
I mentioned to him right now to do Aditya Hridayam.
You mentioned Aditya Hridayam. Excellent. Why did you do that? Because Sun. Excellent. What else can you suggest? Who's the Pavana Devata? Amatya Karaka is Jupiter. From Jupiter, the sixth lord is Mercury.
Vishnu.
So for Mercury, you can say Vishnu. Or you can say Tripur Sundari, Lalita Tripur Sundari. So that is Pavana Devata. But because he's a businessman, apart from the sixth lord from Amatya Karaka, shouldn't the Darakaraka, seventh from Darakaraka be more important? The seventh house is the relationship, and Darakaraka is the source that you associate with. So if you look at the 7th house from Darakarka in Navamsa, the chart of dharma, the chart of protection, that shows the Devata who will be protecting you in all your dealings, whether it's wife or partners or whatever. So who's the Darakarka? Mercury. Where is he? He's in Aries in Navamsa. The 7th from him occupies Sun. So again, Sun is the planet. So Aditya Hridayam that you suggested is very good for partnerships also. It keeps him in contact with good souls, souls that are conducive to him, not with souls with whom he doesn't have anything to do with. So this is a good suggestion you have given. He can pray to he can do Aditya Hridayam, and also for Sun you can pray to Sri Rama out of Vishnu's avataras. But the thing is, Sun is debilitated here, and debilitated planets show a female deity. Exalted planets show male deity. So it can be a female deity corresponding to Sun. Who can that be? Matangi. So if somebody can initiate him in a Matangi mantra, Rajamatangi mantra, it will be a very auspicious sadhana as far as his career is concerned. His career and his business are concerned. It will be a very auspicious sadhana.
So it's the occupant of the 7th house, right?
Occupant in case there is an occupant.
If there's no
Otherwise,
Lord
take the
of
Lord.
Lord of the house.
Yeah.
If it is a service chart, what do we look at? Right now we looked at
But you're looking at a D9.
Yeah, I'm looking at D9. Because D9 is the chart of your dharma. It is the chart of your God. It is a chart of protection from God. 9th house is the house of protection from God. So when you look at various devatas, your Ishta Devata, the one who gives you moksha, the one who gives you sustenance, the one who gives you relationship with the right people, the one who gives you fame, good followers. Suppose you want big following. Who's the Karaka for that? Look at the Putrakaraka and 5th. Saturn is the Naisargika Karaka for fame. But when you are looking at Devatas, look at Charakaraka and look at the relevant house and the Navamsa. That will give you the Devata who is in charge of getting that kind of souls, putting your career and your life, your sustenance in connection with conducive souls so that it flourishes. So if this person wants big following, if he is a big politician and he wants big following, look at Putrakaraka, Saturn here. Oh, that's why you said Saturn. Okay, sorry. Putrakaraka, Saturn, Charaputrakaraka, PK, Saturn, take the 5th from there, Moon. So you worship somebody corresponding to Moon, he will give you big following, and so on.
There's usually a question that several people have asked me, what can I do what do I propitiate to improve the health and welfare of my children and things like that?
Yeah.
So for them also we suggest Putrakaraka, 5th house from Putrakaraka for them to propitiate for their children.
You can. But it will be better to actually go to Saptamsa directly, find that relevant child, take the Lagna Lord or 9th Lord.
For several children, for all their children.
Each children may be different. If you want happiness with respect to one child, health of one child, you can take the Lagna corresponding to that child in the Saptamsa, take the Lagna Lord or 9th Lord and propitiate. Take 9th Lord because he is the general protector. Or you can look at the chart also and see any particular combination that stands out and that is running the current dasha or antardasha. Then you can propitiate for that combination. So it is person based. But if you want in general prosperity of all the children, just take the Lagna Lord in the Saptamsa. That shows the Saptamsa is children. Saptamsa Lagna is you. Lagna in all divisional charts is you from various points of view. So Lagna in Saptamsa is you from the point of view of children, from the point of view of relation with children, from the point of view of happiness from children, etc. So if you want to be in general happy with children, take the Lagna Lord in Saptamsa, worship him. Take a Sankalpa, Putra Saukhyam. If you ask too many things to God, they will get confused. You say something specific, Putra Saukhyartham, that's it. No Dharma, Kama, Moksha, Purushārtha, Siddhyartham, Ayurarogya, Aishwarya, Vidyartham. Just ask Putra Saukhya, I want. And then pray to that God. You will get some Putra Saukhya. But the thing is, depending on the karmas that are blocking the results, depending on the nature of the karmas as shown by the chart, some pujas will work fast, some remedies will not work very fast. It's just a fact of life. And if I tell somebody, see, any problem can be remedied. For example, there was one person, his mother has schizophrenia, and there is a terrible curse in the chart. So it's not a joking matter. It's a very serious matter that caused the schizophrenia, terrible karmas from the past. So if he just wants to do one mala of a simple mantra, Mrityunjaya mantra every day and get over the schizophrenia of his mother, it won't happen. If he is willing to do Hanuman Chalisa, let us say in that particular chart, the remedy suggested to him, not by me but by another person was, do Hanuman Chalisa 108 days every day for 108 days. Sorry, do Hanuman Chalisa 108 times every day for 108 days or at least 48 days. So it's not really a easy thing to do. So if you spend 4 hours every day or 5 hours every day doing a particular sadhana with a particular level of concentration and focus, lot of things can be made to happen. Lot of material things. But the thing is, probably if you are doing that kind of sadhana, you will lose interest in your actual goal eventually. You will be put on a spiritual path, and after you get that particular thing, you will actually start to do more meditation without wanting anything. But what the point, I am getting distracted. The point is, if you tell somebody to pray 4 hours or 3 hours, nobody has time to do that these days. In the past, people used to do 100 years back, but now people are busy. So the thing is, when we suggest remedies, we are on a thin ice. We suggest remedies because they are supposed to work, but people don't know how to make them work. People do very small degree. They just spend 10 minutes and they are happy. They spend half hour and their legs hurt. They don't want to focus anymore. So that is the problem.
So nowadays, there are other people providing services.
Providing services,
So we
absolutely.
can, on your behalf, we will do 40 days or 108 days. And
Yeah.
you pay for this. Are those really, will they really work?
The thing is,
Yeah.
you yourself doing for yourself
Yeah.
is definitely better than somebody else doing for you. Because if you are asking God, you are directly asking God, do this for me. If you ask somebody else to ask God and that person asks God, it depends on your relationship with that person and that person's relationship with God. So there are more stages. There is a proxy. And that person may not have enough spiritual strength to recommend somebody else. And he may not be able to take the sankalpa well. Moreover, that person may not be doing it well also. If you don't know what he is doing, for example, I know one priest, a very nice priest from Chennai, he was telling me that somebody he knows, he suggested some remedy to some person that he knows. To do Rudra Japam 11 times every day for certain, 11 times on a particular nakshatra for several months. Or a particular weekday, something like that. So doing 11 times Rudra Japa by 11 people is basically a laborious task. So he engaged some Brahmins to do this Rudra Japam for him. They were supposed to go to a temple and take his name and then do the Rudra Japam. So this person was under the impression that they were doing every day. But one day this priest happened to go there. They were just talking. They congregated in the temple and they were just talking. They weren't really doing Rudra Japam. And these were supposed to be priests who could do Rudra Japam. And they don't really care because they're getting paid.
It's just a routine thing.
It's a routine thing. But the thing is, because the person spent some money and he's under the impression that something is being done, God will be kind to him. And he will give some kind of result. But imagine what kind of result will be given to the Brahmin who took money and then who should his responsibility.
Making a new karma.
For me,
Yes.
he is getting a terrible new karma. But apart from that, you yourself, your remedy is not perfect in that case. So the thing is, as long as you depend on somebody else, you don't know what they are doing. You don't know what level of devotion they have, because it's not how much time you spend, how much count you make, it's the devotion, what kind of plane you are able to rise to when you are reading a mantra. That decides what is the degree to which the mantra reaches God. Who knows what the caliber of the person is? Maybe it's higher than you, or maybe even lower. You never know. You can't judge based on the clothes a person wears and the dadi, the beard a person has, or how much vibhuti the person has on his body. You can't judge the caliber, spiritual caliber of the person. So, if you find somebody who can't do it for himself, do suggest a priest. Especially if you have found a priest who you think is good, do recommend a priest. But otherwise, if the person is willing to do it himself, in my view, it is better to do it himself. But again, if he just can do 10 minutes every day, maybe it's not worth it. Depending on the degree of the karma you are talking about. So tell this guy in 2009 to do Rudra Japam or Mahamrityunjay mantra, or get a Rudra Abhishekam or Rudra Homam or something done in his house. or a Chandi Homam because Rahu is in Lagna. Something like that will help him. Maybe for all you know, he will do something like that and not really have a big suffering. That is why it's not really showing up in the natal chart. So, all the best to him and all the best for the partnership. Hopefully he will do well in this partnership. So, on that thought, we will end for today. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.